NIN, a National Information Network or intranet, is to shape Iran's new alternate reality, or a part of its cyberspace reality. While foreign trade will still depend on the global internet, the World Wide Web, social media communications and local transactions such as money transfers or catching an online snap cab will be conducted by the national or sovereign network. Network sovereignty means governing and controlling the web within the borders of a state. With an up and running intranet or NIN, local domains will shield domestic transactions and chats from US surveillance and blocking. Iranians' financial transactions won't have to go through foreign banks anymore. And as the cost of electronic activity decreases, speed will increase. For a for and against on the matter, however, stay with me, Leila Faramarzi, on Iran Today. An Iranian intranet which is already functioning but not at full strength would cause three concerns predominantly. First, what would happen to internet freedom or freedom of expression in Iran? Second, how would such an expensive project pick up soon enough to perform a good part of the nation's electronic tasks? And third, how tangible would the lower cost and higher speed be? The third, Mr. Salehi commented on with a reference to his own experience.
Our own experience shows that when national internet was used, people had mixed feelings. They were happy in some cases and unhappy in some others. It was possible to hail a taxi or make internet purchases. A limited number of websites were accessible. But we still lack many services in Iran. We don't have any Google or Microsoft-style company to give us enterprise-level calendar, or some major startups use CRM services. For instance, I'm quite sure that banks are largely using foreign services in various sectors. That is where it becomes annoying.
Mr. Mani'i is also a company man, Director General of Hurmah Rabin Khavar to be exact. He also sees both plus and minus points in the project. Why would you say Iran needs a national information network?
It's quite true that many sensitive servers must be based in the country, or when we speak about less expensive services, at what cost would it be? In some sectors, public costs may be lower, but when such services are used for specialized administrative purposes, the cost will be definitely much higher. For instance, when a company can use services provided by Microsoft for managing its codes, it will cost it much lower. Microsoft offers services freely up to a certain level, and then it charges a little sum. The same company will have to pay much more if it wants to use homegrown services. Even now, when we buy server outside Iran, its bandwidth will be unlimited, but in Iran, we have to pay for bandwidth.
The November 2019 turmoil that followed the rise of gasoline prices in Iran took its toll. But it was also an opportunity to showcase the potential of the National Information Network. Because despite the overall downturn of the internet, softwares of banks, private and government institutions, domestic messaging networks, digital stores, and even an Iranian internet search engine and a navigation app remained active, or were soon enabled. Still, when Iran's National Security Council cut off internet access in parts of the country after protests erupted with the sudden petrol rationing scheme, many internet users took fright authorities would cut off access to the global internet altogether, including popular services such as Gmail and Google. It didn't happen, but why was the internet cut off to then activate a national net? Mr. Zarrin Mehr of the GreenWeb startup gives us his take. GreenWeb is an IT solution company that develops and improves businesses across a wide range of industries. Iran's national internet of the early 2000s, which developed into the National Information Network. In order to make this operational, what obligations did the government put before private companies?
تقریباً میشه گفت تمام کشور.
Almost every country has something like a national data network in order to not lose their access in critical conditions. That's a strategic move. But the question is to know to what extent we can cover services that are available on the World Wide Web.
Officials insist the NIN will not disconnect Iran from the World Wide Web, but act as a secondary domestic source. The Telecoms Ministry said, "The plan was never meant to limit users' internet access and was launched primarily to cut expenses, decrease interference, and improve speed. Tariffs for the National Information Network are half the price users pay for using the internet." In Iran, there are over 64 million mobile internet subscribers. Added to this is the registration of 10.3 million landline internet subscriptions. The total number of internet subscribers has reached 74.5 million. Iran's mobile communications network has also grown fast over the past few years, given 93 million mobile subscriptions have been registered. The country's mobile communications penetration rate has reached about 113.5%. Iran has 1,245 cities and a population of about 82 million. The main goals for establishing the NIN, a pure network devoid of immoral, corrupt and violent content, Mr. Zarin Mehr points to.
این طرح مهم دو تا هدف اصلی داره.
This important plan follows two major objectives. First and foremost, our main services should not become inaccessible. It means that for any reason whatsoever, we may lose our access to internet. Our everyday affairs, including banking, healthcare, transport, and urban services, must remain accessible. That lies under government services. It should be attractive enough to absorb private companies. What keeps national internet at such a distance from worldwide internet pertains to content. The content that is available internationally but does not exist nationally. Therefore, I think that the government should provide more support to private companies that are more agile than state-owned companies. The government can build trust and provide services to them in order to move servers from outside to inside the country. That would accelerate affairs.
But it's a good thing the government understands the need for global connectivity. How else would importers and exporters contact their foreign partners and track their cargo shipping, be it by land or sea? Even with the brief blackout, online businesses and tech startups were effectively shut down for a whole week. And the internet blackout dealt an estimated $1.5 billion blow to the country's beleaguered economy. The NIN project consists of three major phases. The first phase is the construction of two networks to separate local and international online traffic that connects all government organizations and covers all provinces of Iran. The second phase was to see all Iranian websites hosted on local servers and registered on .ir domains. Until recently, many government websites were hosted on servers outside of Iran. The third and final stage was to see that the government provides domestically developed applications and services, including an operating system, OS, an email service, and a search engine. What exactly is the problem? Because I'm hearing complaints from experts. I mean, did Iran not put a proper infrastructure in place?
We experienced an internet blackout in our country and we saw how users were frustrated. Why? Because we didn't have a strong and reliable search engine to respond to our users' needs. We have some search engines that have inflicted heavy costs on the government or private individuals. They are all assets of this country anyway, but as the infrastructure is not suitable, is of no help to users. For instance, assume technical users. This problem will not be resolved as long as the infrastructure is not ready.
Not to lose heart, Mani's criticism comes with a solution.
به دست متخصص سپرده بشه
The government should provide the necessary facilities, and besides, private entities should come to the help of the government and handle the affairs. Some may not consider it as prioritized, however, if it's to be given priority, the infrastructure is the most important element. The companies that are specialized in this sector and are able to program search engines, the companies that can program domestic gates, domestic explorers are competent to help, but provided that the government shows willingness to seek assistance from them.
Plans for a national internet were announced in 2005. It was 11 years after, however, in 2016, that the first phase of the country's National Information Network, as it was later called, became operational. And it is expected to ultimately help advance the development of startups and knowledge-based businesses. Since the initial announcement, the government has invested plenty in the required technology infrastructure, including fiber optic cables and new data centers. To be exact, of the total 190 trillion rials, that's 1.382 billion US dollars, the government invested just under 2/3. The rest was covered by the private sector. Iran is not the only country with a look to a national network. A great old success story is China, and Russia is also heavily investing, although no sum can be too much to put up a shield wall against America's widespread dominance over the internet. According to Zarin Mehr, however, China's success is owing to something others don't have. Countries not aligned with US politics and interests. To what extent do they lose access to their domestic softwares?
ببینید خدماتی مثل موتورهای جستجو
Services like search engines have no alternatives. There is no alternative for operating systems, for us to nationalize them, at least for now. The only country having done so is China, because it has a billion-strong target market. The initial R&D costs are economically justified for it. However, due to the problems caused for Huawei, it could not drop Google services.
We popped out to see what the man on the street has to say. Do take a listen.
Businesses are becoming online. I've experienced a variety of jobs, but almost all of them depend on internet. Definitely nobody can deny the role of internet in today's business. Internet is the most accessible media available real-time to everyone.
What most understand of national internet is the possibility of access to domestic websites only. That's my own understanding too.
I wouldn't like the idea of national internet if it's going to cut me from the world outside. It's actually become impossible to stop the flow of data.
I find it to be a good idea if infrastructure is ready. During a recent internet outage, we could use domestic networks, so there are some positive points, but there must be sufficient, transparent, and unbiased information about it so that we can express our views.
National internet still remains vague. It may mean that Iran would become an island separate from the world, but it may also mean that Iran would be within worldwide internet.
Time for a short break. We'll be back in no time. It was a Briton who invented www, the World Wide Web, in 1989, whilst working for a European organization, CERN, C-E-R-N. But the internet is American, and like America, it breaches borders, only electronic borders. That superpower has easy access to much of the information exchanged between users and servers, and it uses its access to invade their privacy and give their governments a shake-up. So, for the many countries that do not comply with US policies, it is crucial to seek information independence in cyberspace. Well, the US has, since the early 2000s, had an internet freedom agenda. But that's a package of America's core values and economic interests. So it's talking freedom for Americans to colonize other states. But how? We're talking toppling governments by software rather than hard ammunition, a soft war. Now, not all governments are that easy to topple, and those that have been were not exactly succeeded by saints or the politically seasoned. I asked how important it was to bring our servers to Iran to keep within the country's borders.
The presence of domestic servers, particularly when information is sensitive, like Digicolor, Snap, Tapsi, nothing should be leaked out of the country because of the nature of such information. For such startups, servers need to be inside Iran even though they cost higher. That is currently happening and everything is going on well. I don't know any licensed company operating in Iran to have its data center based abroad. In this regard, I think data centers should be inside Iran. Data centers have even created jobs.
In the name of supporting democracy activists, the US put $145 million behind its global internet freedom agenda. Slate.com reported in 2016. Social media was just a small part of a strategy that helped down or change governments in Egypt, Tunisia, and Libya, and create chaos in Syria and Yemen. Now, how many of them are living a happy ending fairy tale? For more on why an intranet, the Russian story, I'll be back after the break. For now, it's a World Media Review with Shahrzad.
Hi, I'm Shahrzad Manucheri, and this is the news section of Iran Today. We'll be looking online for the latest update on Iran's advancements and innovations in the IT sector. In an article by the Atlantic Council, we see Iran gradually achieving independence from the global internet. Today, we know that the NIN, also known as the National Internet, goes beyond network infrastructure. The NIN is backed by laws, regulations, and policies inside the country. As part of this program, new financial policies encourage Iranians to use the NIN's infrastructure through subsites and local traffic. For instance, watching a video on the Iranian video sharing website Aparat costs half the price of watching that very video on YouTube. This was designed to urge businesses and startups to move their servers into Iran and to also encourage Iranians to use domestic services. Today, Iran has created almost 90% of its national intranet. During the recent internet shutdown crisis, only about 7% of users across the country had internet access. This means Iran is gradually achieving its goal of independence from the global internet. The Financial Tribune claims there is a call for developing Tehran's landline internet infrastructure. There are 4,500 sites in Tehran. However, its landline infrastructure used for offering internet services is underdeveloped, which has taken a toll on the quality of services in most areas, forcing the public to choose mobile internet services over landline. Besides working on the quality of broadband internet services, officials should focus on increasing the share of landline services to attain a balance between the two modes of connectivity. On the one hand, low quality and speed of wired and landline internet, and on the other, frequent disruptions in mobile data connection cause inconvenience and in some cases serious problems in everyday personal and administrational activities. Interesting Engineering reports Iran is building an AI supercomputer with or without US processors. Iran is making a big play at present to compete in the ever-deepening trenches of global information technology. Mohammad Javad Azari-Jahromi, Iran's Minister of Information and Computer Technology, tweeted of a current supercomputer project, already in late development, to be launched next year and which he promised would be 100 times more powerful than previous ones. Iran has had no problem in the past sidestepping American sanctions, best illustrated in 2007 when the country produced a Linux-based system utilizing 216 AMD Opteron cores. Plans for this newest supercomputer effort have met with public reactions inside and outside Iran. That's all for this segment. We'll see you next week.
Russia does not even have hostile relations with the United States. Yet it has developed its own national internet program and conducted a maneuver to test and evaluate the program's performance at a national level. That is, to see if its internet services could function if the country were to get cut off from the World Wide Web. For this, it would have to reroute all its data internally rather than relying on servers abroad. Why the fuss? Perhaps because the people of the world just can't do without the internet anymore.
Internet
Internet has now reached a point where it has taken up added significance. Nobody is now able to live without the internet. Internet is now used in ordering food, ordering commodities, e-writing, etc. It is in Iran. We have reached a stage where internet blackout would disturb our everyday affairs in the city and the entire country.
Developing an intranet needs no political excuse, because the internet can simply get physically severed, therefore cutting off nations from the rest of the world. Say in 2008, there were 3 separate instances of damage to the internet's cabling under the sea, which cut off access for users in the Middle East, India and Singapore. It was blamed on ships' anchors, but if the affected countries had been able to reroute traffic, the disruption might have been avoided. Talking of Russia, what Russia has attempted to construct in recent years, China achieved in the early 2000s by embedding the homegrown ISP and DNS infrastructure. Iran has done the same in similar attempts. US sanctions against Iran are an old tale. The financial and monetary sanctions can prevent Iran from accessing internet infrastructure services. 2 factors are of particular importance here: international traffic, gateways, and DNS, domain name servers. A gateway is a node or router in a computer network, a key stopping point for data on its way to or from other networks. It gives us entry into different networks so we can send email, look at web pages, buy things online, and more. For Iran, the issue is more than just the indirect effect of sanctions. The US has repeatedly threatened to block internet access to Iran or cut Iran off .com domains. Naturally, Iran sees the development and operation of a national internet, or intranet, as a necessity in its development plans. Mr. Mani says why his company could do with a national network, even if that network still needs work to be done on it.
Our company develops software in such sectors as logistics, technological receipt, and our own internal communications. We use internet. When it comes to developing applications, we may need to have closer contact with internet in general and national internet in particular. To develop software, we would need some specific services. In some cases, we have to use foreign communication services. We don't have domestically made good ones.
No government would want to see malware reaching military installations and critical water and power grids, or viral fake news reaching its citizens. Iran has always been the target of Western politics and media malice and attempting to divide the country. One of their tools is social media, especially Telegram groups, to rally the people in the absence of a competent or even valid opposition leader.
If we want to take a look at national internet as a tool to be used alongside worldwide internet so that we would have knowledge and data inside the country and reduce our dependence on foreign countries, for example, use wider band in the country, that would be good. But is to block our communications with the world, that would cause many problems. Today, we see that the Pentagon is investing a lot in its cyber army.
What would be the most rational first decision to prevent alien infiltration in times of social unrest? Answer: to block the data transfer route between these external softwares and the global internet. There's fake news spreading like wildfire via social apps. And where minds run wild and confused, unguided demonstrations can find themselves unsavory leaders. What's hardest is maintaining the balance. To keep the balance in cyber wars, some types of information must flow freely, while others can be filtered. To verify all I said about the NIN, which is to offer an internet system up to 60 times faster than the highest speeds currently available, I refer to the law. As defined in Note 2 to Article 46 of Iran's 5th Development Program and adoption of the Supreme Council for Cyberspace, The National Information Network of the country is an internet-based IP network with switches and routers and data centers in a way that internal access and information requests from domestically hosted data centers are impossible to be routed through any foreign country and would allow the creation of private and secure domestic intranet networks. That's it for today. Thanks for watching from the whole team. Hope you'll join us again at the same times next week and each week after at the same times. And don't forget to leave your comments and topic requests. Bye for now.